Hi, welcome to the studio. I'm Lindy Whitman. If you're with me on Patreon, remember that the notes will be down below the post if you're watching it through Patreon. And welcome to this month's theme. So in January we're going to be... Sorry, I'm already behind. In February we're going to be looking at figure in our paintings. And we can use figures in our paintings for lots of different things. And I'll have a few separate posts during the month on some of the various uses for figure in our landscapes and our other paintings. But today what I want to focus on is figure to add movement. And in this painting that I'm going to be doing, this demonstration, my reference photo is this one. So it's a fairly overcast seascape, and it's the little surfer guy there with his board under his arm running into the surf that's going to add the interest and the movement to our painting. We already have movement from the waves, but because the whole thing's so grey and overcast and sort of almost monochrome, it's not as much interest as I wanted. So I chose a photo with someone in it to give movement and life and a bit more drama to it. When you're painting figures, you want to be confident with them before you go in. If you're not confident with figures, just keep in your sketchbook jotting down little figures as you're out and about, just to give you that practice at getting down the essence of them quickly. With figures, it's really just in the main gestures of them, whether they're going to look real or not, and the angles at which you position their limbs and their torso and their head. So this one I've chosen because it's a silhouette almost, and it's fairly simple. The black licorice men, we used to call them here in Australia when they're out in the surf, the black wetsuit and his black hair gives a very sleek look to him, and a very almost backlit look to him. So it's much easier, you don't have to worry about facial features and so on if you're not confident with figures so far. What have I chosen to paint with today? Well, I've chosen a piece of the honeycomb My Tense paper. It's not the usual textured one. This is just so we can get in a nice quick lesson today. I'm not going to put on lots of layers. We're just going to look at how to gesturally get in a figure fairly quickly. Let's get painting. Then for the water, I'm going to use a combination of turquoises and blues in the not very bright range, so low chroma for those. And then for the foam as it comes in, just some very light tints of aqua blue and pinky sort of colours, so that'll be my water. And then the sand is going to have some violets and some sienna-y, pinky sienna kind of colours in it. And then you can see that he's going to be mostly dark, so very dark blue, purpley black, and then the board here is a creamy sort of off-white colour, and sort of dirty white basically, and we'll get that going. What I've done is just make sure it's in the right proportion, so I just take my ruler from corner to corner there, keep it at that angle and move it across, and where it comes out there, that's where I'll draw the line, and that's where I can test out my colours. I'm going to start by working out where I want the horizon, and I'm going to put in the horizon with a ruler. I just like to make sure that my horizon is nice and straight. So it's a little bit above the halfway point, so I'm going to say, call it about that, and I'm going to put in, just to draw a line across there, and that's going to be where the water meets the sky. I could make it slightly lower, but I don't want to cut off the picture plane there. So in we go with the sky, and I'm just taking my darkest amount of blue that I'm going to use there. Then I'm going to take a lighter one. Now there are clouds through all this, so first of all I'm going to put in this. I am going to give it a bit of warmth on the horizon, even though it's quite a blustery, cold day. Then I'm just going to give it a little bit of a blend with my finger, and then put one more layer over the top of that. just overlaying the colours. And letting them run into each other. And I've created a nice soft sky. I could add in some little hints of the colour I'm going to put in the water as well. So a little sort of turquoisey, aquary kind of one. If I want that sky to be a little bit more blended, I can start doing a bit of hatching. So just run my not the edge, the tip. I did all that with the edge, and now I'm just doing it with my tip. Tipping my pastel. I'm doing a lot of little lines that are next to each other all the way along there. I rotate it around occasionally to get... I'm just going to move that slightly away from there because I'm wanting to run over the edge there. And I take some of them down into the next layer, but not so many strokes, because I want that one to be predominantly the lighter colour. So then I move in with the lighter colour, and I do the same thing, going across there, just hatching them down. Just lifting it as I get to the end of a stroke and popping it on as I come to the top of the stroke. And that's starting to hatch them across. Then I've got the more peachy colour. I'm doing the same thing with that all the way along. That's giving me a different sky than the one in the photo. So I can choose to leave it like that, or I can add in some clouds. And if I'm adding in some of the clouds, I might go across like so. In one of the lighter blues I was using in there. And I'm using the side of it, and I'm rolling it across the paper there. And you can see how it's giving me a blending tool as well. It's acting as a blending tool for the rest of the paper there. I could have chosen a lighter paper and then I wouldn't have this dark showing through, but I thought it might contribute to the mood. And you'll see when we've finished whether that's the case or not. And so I can just pull some more along horizontal bands of it along closer to the horizon. And I've got some cloud masses in there. You can see where I'm using the same pastel and getting different results because of the blending that it's doing. So up here it's a blue, and down here it looks lighter because the values compared to the values behind it have different amounts of contrast. If I want to then deepen some areas of the sky, I can go back in with one of the sky colours and just add a bit of that in. And you can see I'm going up and down this time, not horizontal as I did with the clouds. So now I've got a bit of a sky going on. Make those clouds up there a little bit bigger. Okay, so sky is in. Now I want to put the strip of water. And I'm just going to take the side this time. And pull it across there. I can give it a little drag across with my finger, which helps to blend the sky with the water there. So I'm going to use some greener colours in that as well. A green blue. That lovely greeny grey colour the water gets on a cloudy day. You notice I haven't gone anywhere near my figure yet, and I could have sketched it in before then, but I'm not putting on very thick pastel, so I can go back into it with my charcoal stick and put it in. It's hard to bring the sky and the water through with without losing the fluidity when I'm doing that. So now I've got the water in, I'm just going to bring the strokes of the blue down into the green. And now it's time. It's already got that soft hazy look on the day there. I need to actually straighten this out a little bit. I drew it in carefully and then I lost it by being a bit sloppy with how I put on my pastel. And then just shush along it again. That's about right. Okay, now I've got the sand area to do. I've got the waves there. So the waves are going in with the same pale blue that I used in the sky to start with. And they're just going to be scrumbling, so just putting your pastel on and jiggling it around all the way across here. And you can see how it's blending with the water that I've already put in, and so I'm getting a number of colours in there, not just that blue. I've got a greeny colour in there as well. Down here I'm going to go and put in the slightly darker blue from the sky, because at the base of the wave there's some shadows, and I'll pull that somewhat up into the lighter colour, and then I'm going to go back with the lighter colour and modify it again. So think about how the waves are moving. Here I'm pulling it down that way and pulling it down that way in a little curve because the waves are going up like so. Back here there's going to be a little bit of spray, and that's easily achieved as well. Just going back with that paler blue now and working some of that down into the shadowed area so I get a nice variation. And some of that's going to come forward here, and that's when this dark comes in handy because it's giving me already those little holes, lace holes you get in the water. And I can take now the edge of the pastel and do some little lace patterns with it, just rough squiggles around to get some sort of movement going in that little area. As it comes forward, the sand, wet sand reflects the sky colour, so I'm putting in a bit of that blue colour for some of the sky reflection. But also, I'm going to put in, I need a sort of, a colour I probably haven't got here, which I might have to make. Let's see how we're going with that one. We might start with that. Just for the wet area of sand there. So I'm putting that in. I'm letting it pull back into, it's all wet here, and it's going to have some mauves in it as well, and maybe some little bits of pink. I'm going for the palest mauve I have and adding some of that in. I'm just putting it across the sand. And I'm going to go back and work some more of the sky blue into that. And a sort of, not quite that colour. I'm looking for a, that might get a little shot of that down there. Just a little bit darker down at the water's edge where it's really wet. This is all wet sand, so it needs to be shiny and reflective, and what I'm going to do is blend that quite a lot. So I'll get my little blending tool. This is my a soft white from the Great American Seascape set, and so I'm just putting in using the side of it, scrumbling it across the top there to give the sunniest, the most sunlit areas of those waves. And you can pull back by putting it on there and just, oops, that was a bit rough, and just pulling it back you can get the sense of spray coming off, being blown by the wind. And it is quite windy this day, so you can add yourself some spray there. You can pull some of that white down into the area here. So just randomly making marks till I've got something that resembles what I want. I can go back into there also with some greens. Just pour some greens through the foam there, just for some shadowed areas, darker ones, lighter ones, just to make it, give it a little I don't want too much of the dark showing there. A little bit won't hurt, but not too much. So there's the water spraying up. There's a little, lovely little ripple coming around here. And we can put in a couple of those. But really what I want to do now is put in the figure. Now it's quite hard drawing it at an angle here, so forgive me if he goes a little bit off. What you want to do now when you're looking at this figure, just bring my reference over a bit so you can see it. Let's see where I can put him. Let's slip him in there next to the painting and move everything across slightly. So here, what we want to do is get the proportions right, and you can see here that his head is above the horizon line. You can see that he takes up about half of the space there. So think about those kind of proportions. Where are you going to put him in the whole picture pane? In that third over here. So I start by just making a few quick marks. That will be the top of his head. That will be the base of his foot, so he's going to be that tall. And that's what I'll work towards. If we put our, whatever we're drawing with, let's use that pencil so you can see next to it, next to him, and see where a line drawn from the top of his head down would go. It would end up about there. You can actually draw these lines on your reference photo if you like and say, okay, the top of his head's here. That's the thing. His other foot's going to be over here slightly, and his other foot's going to be quite a way back. So you can then do some angles like this and say, what angle is it going at? So where will it end up? So it's going to be at that angle. First of all, I'll start with his head, and I'm just doing in some rough shapes at this stage to give me the idea of how his head is positioned there. Let's put in the surfboard here. It's got a little rounded kind of end, and then we're going to go. Just paying attention to how far from the body it is and what the curve of it is. You can always, nice to get it right first time, but you can always go back into it. So that's his body there. Now that was his shoulder coming forward, so now I'm just putting in the shoulder joint there and his arm coming down, and because he's holding something, it's coming down and then it's going to be bending. His wetsuit only comes part way down, and then his arm keeps coming and his hand goes around. So that's, he's got another hand coming over there helping to hold it, and then it's how does his leg go? So look again here at the angles. It comes out a little bit angled to there, but it's coming down a little bit straight around his muscles there. Other leg coming in like so. Knee is down here past where that muscle comes, so he's got a bit of a knobbly knee, and then I've put that too far down, so you can just adjust as you go, looking at the figure. That's better. And the little muscles there on the back of his legs there, his wetsuit stops there, and then he's got his foot. And this is where you need to pay attention. How is the foot placed? He's on the tip of his toes, his heels raised up, and that's what's going to suggest the motion. So that's one leg. The other leg comes out over the top like so, and it's much further forward. You can look where the position of his hand is, so his knee comes out there, his leg's coming forward, and that knee is placed higher than that one. So just look for those little cues when you're drawing this in. I am not, and don't claim to be, an expert at the figure. Something I've struggled with, but it's just really like anything else, look for the lines. So here, when I'm looking at his foot, his heel is touching the ground first, and the rest of his foot is, his toes are up a bit. So his toe heel, and that gives him the sense of motion. I think probably I've given him too much body above the surfboard, and so maybe I need to lower his head down a little bit there. And that looks better. So now I've got the outline and his movement in, I can just clean up around it. So here I'm just taking the sky colour I'm using, just cutting back into that space a little bit. And now I'm going to go in and place some colour on that. And I actually am going to go in with a deep purple to start with, and just lay on the colour following those lines I've done. There's really not going to be any detail in this. So on I go, just layering in the colour, and you can see how easy that is now to get the shape once I've drawn it in first with the charcoal. And I can go back and clean up those edges by drawing back into them negatively. Here comes his arm down here. That's his wetsuit coming across like that. That shoulder is too far forward, so I can go in and just clean that up a bit. And you'll notice these when you start to do your figure. How does it look? Looks like he's been Arnold Schwarzeneggering himself there. So now I'm just going to cut back in with those wave colours. I picked up a bit of the purple from there, but that won't really matter. I'll go back in with a bit of green over that to knock it back. Okay, so that's his suit. A pencil is a good thing to tidy up those edges, just a normal lead pencil. I've talked about that before, and I'm just tidying up his wetsuit with that, getting a bit of a sharper edge on it. And again, if I think I've gone too far there, I can just go back in with some of the colours I've used there, have a little bit of the darker blue, taking a sharp edge and working my way back into it so I can sculpt his leg a little bit. And then just take some of that colour and pull it out, making sure I have a little bit of continuity behind there too. So there we have him. That's a little bit of sky reflections there. That's our figure of the surfer. I've got to put his hair in now, so again that's just going to be with this very dark purpley sort of pastel. And a suggestion of that tanned face. So I'm just going for a brown sort of reddy brown colour there. That's his face. Hands coming down here. Another hand coming over the surfboard there. And his feet. Here comes his feet. Now at this stage you can go and pull out your little contes and use those for the more tricky bits. Here I'm coming around, and the front of his foot has got a little curve on it, and then he's got that little heel going there and under his foot. Same on this side, and this time the heel is touching the ground first and the toes are coming up, but they've still got that little curve at the front. I'm going to use that sienna just to give his hand a bit more warmth and his face. So he looks like a surfer on the move. I need to get his surfboard in now, and I'm going to continue I'm going to use a bit of black for the end of it there. And remember to give it a curve there so that we can see the curve of the surfboard. And then I can use the charcoal to blend that all in. And then the surfboard itself, the main body of it is a sort of creamy yellowy white, so I'm going in with this cream yellow and white, which is one of the reasons I chose purple instead of black for the surfboard, because, for the wetsuit, because I felt it would contrast nicely with this yellowy colour that I'm now putting on. Doesn't matter that I'm picking up colours out of the water, because the surfboard has this sort of dirty area, you could almost call it, where they wax it so that there's some texture for their feet to stick to. So there's the surfboard. It's got a little bit of a touch of other colour on the end of it there. So I'm putting that in, a little bit of a stripe up there, and it has a little stripe going out there, which actually I could put in with the pencil. I think it would work better. The other thing it's got is some little ropes that I'm going to use. This is his rope, so that his leg rope. I'm using a pencil to put those ropes in. So there he is, striding along. Now the thing that will help him stay touching the ground is having some water falling off his foot as he picks his foot up and down into the water underneath it. So I'm putting the little wriggle lines of water, and there's just some splashes of water coming off his heel, over his foot there, and around this foot here there's splashes of water. And I'm putting in some little bits of foam along the edge there, running back. If we still need to tidy up some edges, just go in, you get pastel or your charcoal, give it a bit of a tidy up. And now's your chance to go in and Just do any last minute little bits that you want. I'm just putting a little bit more sunlight on there. I'm going to actually put a little bit of shadow underneath his foot there, so a little bit darker underneath his foot. And a little bit darker around where his feet touch the ground. He also has a little bit of a reflection going on there because he's in the water, but not the water, but he's touching. He's walking over the wet sand. So I'm just putting a suggestion of reflection there. Not as dark as he is. So there we have it. The surfer walking into the surf, a little bit of water trailing off his foot. It's these angles of his leg that make you think he's walking. He's got his head back, tilted back a little bit. He's marching out into the surf. We'll lose his surfboard a little bit against the water there, so you've got some mossed edges, and then some sharper edges as we go through here. And I think you'll agree that having that figure in this particular seascape really adds a little bit of drama to it. So there we have it. The surfer heading off to the sea. I hope it will help you to feel that you don't need to be so worried about putting figures in. That's quite simple, and you can see that you can, as you notice things wrong with it, you can cut back negatively using the pastels that you've laid down around it. Just pick them up again and cut into the figure to try and get it into the shape you want. Practice sketching it first, then when you put it on there, put it on roughly with an outline, and then start blocking it in with the pastels. And once you've blocked it in, just keep referring as you're blocking it in back to your reference, making sure that the shapes are sitting where they should have, head above pelvis, above toes, so that you line it up in the way that it's appearing in your reference photo. And then when you put it in, keep going back and checking and modifying and cutting back in with your pastels negatively around it to get the shape you would, just as if it was a tree or a house that was in the landscape or a mountain. You can alter it once you've got it in, so don't be scared of them. Next time I'll be looking at how to use the figure to suggest a sense of scale in your landscapes. Hope you enjoyed that one. See you next time. Bye for now.